The Rainbow Warrior Case of 1985. France sinks New Zealand through the UN. In 1985, the international environmental organization Greenpeace stationed their ship in Auckland in preparation to protest French nuclear testing 1,200 kilometers away in the Marora Atoll. The ship never left the harbor, however, as two French agents bombed the ship in New Zealand territory, destroying the ship and killing a Dutch photographer, Fernando Pereira. New Zealand condemned this terrorist act, and at first the French wholly denied any involvement.
The key parties involved were the French DGSCE and the people of New Zealand. French agents Meffar and Pierre acted in the operation to destroy the Rainbow Warrior, aptly named Operation Santonique. Meffar and Pierre were caught by New Zealand police and were found guilty of manslaughter and arson under New Zealand courts.
Some key implications on this was the right for New Zealand to try French nationals, and in this instance, government actors, under domestic courts. Also, the French government threatened New Zealand with severe embargoes if the agents were not returned to France.
The attack and infringement of New Zealand's sovereignty universally condemned the authority New Zealand had over their own country. The boat was legally in the waters of New Zealand, and the attack by French nationals was never told to the Kiwis, and at first was tried to be covered up. New Zealand argued that to let the two agents go after being convicted would undermine the integrity of their own domestic judicial system.
According to French President Mitterrand, France had acted lawfully because New Zealand was a platform and a relay for initiatives hostile to France. They also claimed the atoll was crucial to the strategic facility of the French state. After a lengthy deliberation between the two countries, presided over by UN Secretary General de Salar, France agreed to pay $6.5 million US to New Zealand and apologize. In return for this, the two agents would be shipped off to nearby French territory of Hao for 3 years and then returned to France.
However, after no more than 2 years, both Meffar and Pierre returned home to France, both citing medical issues at the behest of New Zealand officials. After receiving medical attention, both Meffar and Pierre were free to pursue their own careers and received a hero's welcome.
This is important to international law, as it shows that France did not act out of good faith. It also shows the inability for small states' right to a fair trial. This case is one of the biggest international law disputes between two peaceful first world nations in the last 30 years, and is commonly cited to this day.
New Zealand argued that Pierre and Meffar should be tried individually, citing the Nuremberg Tribunal. This is in line with the Rome Statute and reiterates important principles that assumption of responsibility by a state for acts contrary to international law, which it authorizes, does not solve its individual agents from liability for the commission of those acts.
Citing the United States diplomatic and consular staff in Tehran case, the UN unanimously held that New Zealand's request for a declaration and order that Meffar and Pierre return to the island of Hao could not be accepted. This happened since the majority of the tribunal found the obligation to hold them on the island of Hao had expired on the 22nd of July, 1989.
Moreover, the case provides a salient example of the standard of objective responsibility in international law, such as state responsibility for acts committed by that state's officials or organs. Under the principle of objective responsibility, it implies the fact that the French defense minister and French intelligence agency knew of the operation to sink the Rainbow Warrior was sufficient enough to hold France liable for the acts of Meffar and Pierre as its agents. New Zealand did not have to prove who actually authorized the sinking after international pressure.
France paid $8.16 million to Greenpeace in damages, which helped finance another ship. It also paid compensation to the Pereira family, reimbursing his life insurance company. To this day, France does not formally recognize the International Court of Justice.
In conclusion, the Rainbow Warrior case resulted on the agreement of a fund to promote friendly relations between citizens of the two countries made on the 29th of April 1991. The initial injection of $2 million by France shows their act towards goodwill, yet it still shows their tendency to use monetary devices to solve this deep issue.